Okay, this is assignment number 29. This is kind of like a guided practice. Assignment 20, assignment 30, you need to do on your own. At any time while you're working on this, if you want to go ahead and try to do it on your own, press pause, go on, check to see if you got it right. Okay, what we're going to talk about is parallel and perpendicular lines. Alright, in our first example, we have Jason and Scott. They plan on biking to the center of town to get ice cream at the convenience store. Since Scott had to put air in his tires, Jason was able to get 1 mile ahead of Scott before Scott left the house. Both bikers rode at a speed of 15 miles per hour. Write an equation in y equals mx plus b form that represents Jason's trip. Okay, well, they're both going to the same spot. Alright, and we want to write an equation. So y, okay, would equal the slope. Alright, the slope is 15 miles per hour. Okay, so for every hour, they go 15 miles. X plus b, Jason was able to get a mile ahead of Scott, so he's 1 mile ahead of Scott. Alright, second one, Scott's trip, would be the same speed, so 1/15 x, alright, and b would be 0 because he's 1 mile behind Jason. Alright, now when we have that 0, we don't need to write it because anything plus 0 is itself. Will Jason and Scott meet before they reach the store? Explain. What do you think? Well, it's no, because if they're going at the same speed and Jason's ahead of Scott, then Jason will get there first. And you guys can write that. If they're going at the same speed and Jason gets a 1 mile head start, Jason will be there first. Okay? If you were to graph both lines on the same coordinate plane, predict what your graph would look like. Alright, so here's our coordinate plane. Jason gets a mile head start, so he's here and he starts a little ahead of time. Okay, actually, he's here, he gets a little head start. Okay, while Scott is a little behind him. Okay. Number 2, on the same set of axes, graph the following lines. Use a ruler to make your lines. Okay. Y equals 3x plus 4. Alright, if you guys remember correctly, the first thing we do when we're graphing in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, is we plot b first. Okay, in this case b is 4, so we plot 4 on the y-axis. That's our y-intercept. And then the second step is to use the slope to plot the second point. In this case, our slope is 3, okay, or 3 over 1. So from the y-intercept, we're going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to run 1 to the right. And we can plot our second point. Okay, once we have our 2 points, we could draw our line through the 2 points. Alright, similar with this second line, now our b is -4, so we're going to go down to -4, plot that point. The slope is the same, so we're going to rise 3 and run 1. Okay, and then we can draw our line. And then the last one, our b is not shown here. That means our b is 0. Okay, and then from that point we rise 3 and run 1. And we could draw our line. Alright. what do you notice about what you graphed in problem 2? Well, you guys might have learned this, is that the lines are parallel. Okay, now you might see a symbol for parallel. Parallel is kind of like the two L's in the middle of the word parallel. That's a symbol, those two lines. Okay, what can you say about the slopes of parallel lines? Well, what did you notice about the slopes of all these lines? There were 3. So parallel lines have the same slope. On the same set of axes, graph the following lines. Use a ruler to make your lines. Okay, so let's graph these two. Alright, our B here is 1. Our slope is 2, or 2 over 1. So B up 2 over 1. And we could draw our line. Alright, and then the second one, our B is negative 1, and our slope is negative 1 over 2. Alright, so negative 1 down 1, because we're negative 1 over 2. And we have that line. Part B, how does the line y equals 2x plus 1 compare to y equals negative 1 half x minus 1? Discuss the slopes of each line and what type of angles is formed when the lines intersect. Alright, so let's look at where the lines intersect. They intersect right here, and they're talking about what type of angle. Okay, and hopefully by now you've learned about a right angle. Alright, and it looks like these lines form a right angle. Okay, and then what we call that is when two lines form a right angle is perpendicular. Alright, let's try this one. Plot B, and our slope is negative 2 over 3, so plot B, B is 4, negative 2 over 3, and then B is negative 3, and our slope is 3 over 2. Negative 3, 3 over 2. Okay, again, you notice that we have this right angle. Well, what do we notice about the slopes in this case? Alright, if you notice, the slopes are flipped around. And one of them is negative. Okay? So, what that means is when we have perpendicular lines, they have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. Right? For example, what's the opposite of 6? Well, we know the opposite of 6 is negative 6. Alright, conversely, the opposite of 6, negative 6, is 6. Okay? So if we want to do negative reciprocals or opposite reciprocals, we take the 6, write it as a fraction, so 6 over 1, flip it over, which is known as the reciprocal, change the sign to a negative, known as the opposite. Therefore, the opposite reciprocal of 6 is negative 1 over 6. So, find the opposite of each number. Well, we have negative 4, so we're going to put a 1 under it. We're going to flip it over, the space. We're going to flip it around. Okay, and we're going to make it negative, or we're going to do the opposite of that, which means if it's negative, we make it positive. Alright, 5 over 2. Find the reciprocal. And then the opposite. Negative 3/7. Find the reciprocal. And then the opposite. And then 0 would be, opposite of 0 is the undefined slope. Okay, if you remember, 0 slope goes like this, undefined slope goes like this. There's your right angle. Okay, below are our equations for 4 lines. Okay, which of these lines are parallel? Well, when we talk about parallel, they have the same slope. Alright, and then which of the pair lines are perpendicular? Alright, opposite, reciprocal. Okay, so let's look at same slope. Let's do this in red. Same slope. Alright, well here's the slopes. Negative 1/5, 1/5, negative 5, negative 1/5. Well, same slope, negative 1/5, matches with negative 1/5. Okay, so those two, y equals negative 1/5 x plus 7, is parallel to y equals negative 1/5 x plus 8. They have the same slope. Alright, not the same as 1/5. 1/5 is positive. Which are opposite reciprocals, which are perpendicular? Well, we have negative 1/5. Okay, negative 1/5. The opposite reciprocal of that would be opposite reciprocal. Reciprocal opposite would be 5. We don't have a slope of 5. Okay, but if we take 1/5 and do the reciprocal and then make it opposite, we get negative 5. So these two here are perpendicular. Okay, write an equation of a line parallel to the given line. Alright, there's more than one correct answer. Well, if we want to write an equation that's parallel to this, all we need is something that has the same slope. So y equals, our slope's 4, x, and we could choose any y-intercept. I'm going to choose 3. Okay, you could choose any y-intercept, just not 1 because it's the same line. Alright, negative 9 is the slope. So y equals negative 9 x plus 10. Alright, that's parallel. Okay, you do C and D. Perpendicular, opposite reciprocal, so we have to take our slope here and flip it and make it the opposite, alright, which would be positive 3/4. So y equals positive 3/4 x, and then our y-intercept could be anything. Alright, 9, flip it, and then do the opposite. So it's y equals negative 1/9 x minus whatever, 2. Okay, you do C and D. Alright, and then the last one I want you to do on your own.